Morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to all. And I know if you are in the Midwestern area, as I am in Wisconsin, we're all kind of hunkered down today, awaiting a ice, snow, sleet, rain, whatever's coming our way today. And many churches are canceled. So I appreciate that you take the time to listen to this, and I pray that it feeds your spirit and encourages you today. So, as you know, we're going through the Peshitta Aramaic New Testament, and we had finished up the Lord's Prayer. Again, this is all still part of the Sermon on the Mount, which continues into chapter 8 of Matthew. So imagine that you're still sitting there yet, listening to Jesus speak, and we get now to kind of an intriguing passage. Um, I don't know really why I chose this, other than it's always been a little bit of a mystery to me. It's Matthew 7, chapter 7, verse 7. Ask and it shall be given unto you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. This is quoted and taught from so often. And, in it is where we seek our hope and that our prayers are being heard, that our petitions to God will be heard and granted. And of course, I need to clarify by saying I am thankful for every prayer that God has answered. I have, in these 46 years that I have been honored to have been called to know God, I've had many prayers answered. But also with that, I have had many that were not. And it seems that we remember the ones that are not answered. And the question we always have is, why are some prayers answered and others are not? And if you're like me, you try to reformulate your request. You try to, uh, find out where my heart and my motives are at, and am I asking the wrong way? And of course, when you pray for something and it doesn't happen right away, this verse from James chapter 4 is what we kind of fall upon, saying, okay, well, you've asked and you don't receive because you ask amiss, because you're trying to benefit yourself. But there are prayers that I pray for others that I feel are not self-serving. They are prayers for loved ones to be touched, for them to know God, to be saved, to be healed. Many other requests that are outside of myself that I feel are not self-serving, not self-benefiting, but are totally in the realm of non-beneficial to me, but because of the love and concern I have for those around about me, people who are in harm's way, and all these things, and kind of comes back to this, is there something in this verse in the Aramaic that would give me, oh, I don't know, some comfort, some direction? Would it change my prayer in any way? Would it change my understanding of these words, and how those sitting on the hillside who spoke Aramaic and heard the Aramaic, but yet had the deep and rich Hebrew background and had the understanding of being, raised in the synagogue and hearing the Word of God, basically what's called the Tanakh, Genesis through Malachi. They had this, memorized. They knew it by heart. What might they have understood when they heard Jesus speak these words? So that's kind of what just prompted me to stop here to take a look at this verse. What I'd like to do is just set a little bit of a groundwork by going back to the beginning of the chapter and remembering that they did not have chapters and verses back when this was spoken. This was one continual um, uh, message that was spoken. But I'm looking at the words that Jesus spoke prior to verse 7. He talks about judging and not being judged. This is obviously how you treat others. The message here is treating others, for with the judgment that you judged, it's being fair, um, caring about others so that you think about them the same way as you want others to think about you. Then we get to verse 3, and it talks about just the self-awareness of, before you talk to someone else, look inwardly, retro retrospectively, inwardly about what you might have as a hindrance in your own self before you look at others and others. Um, I think the comparison here of the beam versus the straw is that others problems that others have always seem to be magnified in our eyes, but yet, if we were to look in the mirror, our problems are probably even bigger, but to us they seem small. So it's just that awareness, that self comparison of where I'm standing. And then when we get to the next verse, understanding about the humility, it's about being able to look at yourself. Then verse 6 is just another interesting one that I think falls under the category of discernment, of knowing, what is the situation all about? And this whole, this verse just seems really out of place. But yet, how does it relate to the things that we regard as set apart? Again, the word holy just means it's dedicated and separated to God, not to take those things which God has given you and that are dedicated to Him and misapply them and put them in places where they shouldn't be. And maybe there's a message here that speaks to you that then leads up to this verse 7. And so this is very interesting. So the Hebrew itself would be, or excuse me, the Aramaic itself would be shal, and it's the sheen, aleph, lamed, and it has a vav at the end. So we're just going to take a look at this first word here and go into the analyze area. What you're going to find is all of the translations really hardly vary at all. Everyone starts with ask, it shall be given to you, seek. They all use the same word, seek. Um, and it shall be given. So we'll look at that tense of what that means. And then, of course, you shall find, uses the word knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Virtually no discrepancy there whatsoever. So it's like, I look at this and say, well, what am I going to find? These are all much smarter people than I am. And they all come up with the same thing. But that's where this kind of starts, I don't know, prompting me to just look a little deeper into the resources we have. So we see this first word of shall means to ask, inquire, salute, or to lend. So those are the four meanings that are just in this little box here. It talks about it being in a tense or form. The form is a pial, which is more of the lexicon dictionary form, no intensivity behind it, but it is thought to be in an imperative state, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later. So taking that word and taking a look at the dictionary of the Targumim, where we have this Shin Aleph Lamed, what amazed me is I thought there would be just, one word, saying ask or whatever. Like some of these have very small entries. But yet when you get to this word, Sha'al, it has over 2 pages of entry of what must have been something that impressed the translator or the commentators back in those days to understand that this word has a lot to unpack. So Jastrow says it can mean to ask, to beg, to inquire, and to question. And the rest of these pages, those of you that have access to this or are familiar with it, I'll let you read a lot of this on your own because it just goes through and the different areas in the Bible and in the Talmud reference or explanation of what this word ask means. So perhaps it intrigued them also, but it still comes down to cause, to inquire, to ask, to inquire, to beg. And here we're on page 2 it can mean to consult, to be inquired of. And then we go to page 3 as we finish up, talks about prayer for rain, having a question, being in the midst of a problem, to request a prayer, you desire something. Again, all the same type of understanding. So, with that, I wanted to take you on a journey, first of all, to the Hebrew Bible in Zechariah. I found one place where the exact same spelling of this word of the Shin, Aleph, Lamed, and then the Vav at the end matches exactly what we find in the Syriac Aramaic of Matthew 7. It also has it located or listed as an imperative and in a masculine plural. So masculine plural makes sense because he's talking to everyone on the mountainside. And in the Hebrew, when you have a mixed group of people where the majority of them might be men, you would use the masculine plural to address them. Not anything strange about that. Let's unpack this word, looking at the Hebrew commentary here and or the lexical summary. Um, Many different ways that this word is translated in the King James: to ask, borrow, beg, lay charge. So this is where we start thinking, okay, when I ask, what frame of mind should I be in? What mode should I be in? Should I be in a begging mode? Should I be in a consulting mode? Here it's even translated as demand. Is it right to be in a demand mode? Um, this is where we struggle because ultimately we're petitioning God to do something that is out of our realm of ability. We're calling upon his mercies to be extended to us. We're trying to move his heart as our heart is moved. And we're going to see in the later verses, there's obviously this whole passage is backed up by an understanding that God is like a very loving father. He references, that if my children ask bread, am I going to give them a stone? If they ask of something good, am I going to give them something bad? If he asks for a fish, am I going to give them a snake? So we get the whole understanding that God is, really intent on responding in a way to answer our prayer. And I'm thankful for that. But so that begs the question is why isn't every prayer answered? And I think that's the intriguing part behind this. And that's what I'm searching for. And I hope you indulge me on this journey, if maybe it resonates with you also, as we continue to look at this word to see if there's something in here that they understood differently than we understand today. So it is a primitive root to inquire by implication, to request, could be demanding, beg, borrow, consult, demand. Um, Again, lots of different ways to think about this. But what is the right way? Is there a right way, or is it all of the above? Of course, this is used so many times in the Bible, and comes up in all, we don't hardly go a day where we don't ask God for something in our prayers. Um, so here is the overview of this verb scope. It depicts every kind of asking, from humble prayer to brazen demand. It's from courteous request to formal diplomatic inquiry. It's used about 173 times. This is, as it mentions, this is central to the act of our life in the covenant. Covenant people must seek, petition, and depend upon the Lord, and they relate to each other through respectful requests rather than coercion. This is what we're seeking for. How should we be asking? And then, of course, there's many different types of examples that are given. So we're going to leave that a little bit and look if we can find something in the meaning behind the Hebrew letters. The first letter is the letter Shin, and it is the same in Hebrew as in the Syriac Aramaic. And with that, there's many who, as they go into more deeper study of the word, some would call it more of a mystical study. Um, there's some unpacking that the letters each have their own individual meanings, and each letter has its own numerical value, which we'll take a look at after we move on here. But the letter Sheen, its primary meaning is peace, joy, divine power, God's passion and love, wholeness, completion, God's filling, consuming passion. Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense for what we're entering into is in this asking in prayer, is this connection with God. So the next letter is the Aleph, and it is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It has a numerical value of 1. Its primary understanding is God. The number 1, first letter, represents God, unity, headship, leadership. All again makes great sense in why this word is constructed with the sheen and the aleph. Then we go down to the next letter, which is the lamed, and the lamed has a primary meaning. You can even see the shape of it is kind of reaching like hands reaching up. It's like a person kneeling and lifting their hands. And it's reaching up to heaven for divine knowledge, receiving divine knowledge into your heart, learning, teaching, purpose, prayer. So every letter of this word has a association with what's being brought about here with this asking. Now, I was mentioning about the numerical value of this word, and if you were to add up the 300, the number 1, and 30, you'd come up with 331. Now, there is a book out there is written called The Spice of Torah, called Gematria. Gematria is the Hebrew Aramaic word for the study of the numerical value. Now, some people say this is all just mysticism and nonsense. And again, we're not trying to create any real dissension here, but it's more to show you, okay, at the time when Jesus spoke, here's what the disciples understood. Here's what the people who heard knew this. This is an ancient type of teaching. And even though it may be frowned upon today in Christian circles and even some Jewish circles don't put any stock in it, we're looking for what would have the disciples heard? What would have the people on the mountain heard? Was there a meaning here that Jesus wanted to connect with them and resonate with them? And so in this book, The Spice of Torah, it takes the whole Torah and looks at every place where a word is used that its numerical value adds up to a certain number and categorizes them. So here, the number 331, which matches the word sha'al of prayer, um, it's used in Genesis, and it's Genesis chapter 3, verse 16, about your husband. Okay, is there any connection there? Well, yes, God is sometimes thought of as our husband. The church, we as people are thought of as his spouse, his bride. Um, Another one that's very interesting here is a tamarisk tree from Genesis 21 and 33. This is reference to Abraham planting a grove of trees. Why did he plant the grove of trees? To have a place of prayer, to have a sanctuary where he could talk with God. I think that's very, very interesting. The word ask here is the sha'al, the exact one we looked at. The word healed is also the same numerical value. The cities, many times we're asking for healing, we're asking for God to move in the cities. They shall return, a surety. When we come to Leviticus, which is a priestly book where the sacrifices and the atonements are made and the offerings are all made, I found something that I thought was quite interesting, that in Leviticus, this 331 shows up more times that have reference to what we're looking at. And it references this word that means they shall bring it near, they shall offer, shall assemble. That's what prayer is about, asking is about. And they shall bring it near, they shall bring it, he shall slaughter it, which is an offering, a sacrifice. He shall make smoke. The smoke ascends, which is the what our prayers do, ascending up. He shall shut him up, allowing for time to be in oneness and community with God. He grows in wealth, could be an answer to someone's prayer, and in a reduction, causing us to look at ourselves and minimizing ourselves, humbling ourselves, and then as a field, which a field is where produce comes from and where our sustenance comes from. So I'm not sure how much this resonates with you, but to me, this is starting to help me at least get in the mindset of what they may have heard, what they may have thought when they heard this term. Um, to pray, or to ask, and how closely it was tied in with a prayer, with a petition unto God. Well, that's where we're going to stop today. Just one word as we start unpacking this. I hope you find this intriguing, fascinating, however it ministers to you. The idea is that we want to draw near to God. We want to be appreciative for all that He's done. I know He has answered so many prayers in my life, prayers I have asked for, even prayers I haven't, that later on He has supplied bountifully. But the idea is, are we truly understanding what it means to ask, to seek, to knock? How often should this be fulfilled? And all those questions that go along with the study of this verse. So, hope that's enough for you for today. God bless you all, and Lord's willing, we'll see you next week. Bye bye.